Hi, this is Kendra from Pencil and Pigment, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. I am coming at this from the angle of an artist. I am not a mental health care professional, so take everything I say sort of with a grain of salt. And if you think that this is something that you might be struggling with, please reach out to someone in the mental health care arena so they can further assist you and help you. So imposter syndrome is sort of the belief that your success and everything you've achieved, you don't believe it. You feel like a fraud, you feel like a fake, you feel like everything you've done, you haven't deserved it. And that is something that is very, very prevalent, I have seen, in the artist sphere, in the artist community. That is just something that's sort of accepted, and a lot of folks have it. A lot of famous folks have it. I will link a quiz, sort of. It's an online quiz to sort of help see if this is something that maybe you are suffering from. Again, it's not a diagnostic tool, but it could be something that maybe points you in the right direction if you are having trouble with some of the things that you have achieved, in accepting them and being proud of yourself and sort of learning to take ownership of your successes. It can kind of feel like anxiety. It could kind of feel like you're doing things wrong, like you don't belong here. There are different types of imposter syndrome. There's actually 5 different types. There's the perfectionist, the superhero, the natural genius, the rugged individualist, the expert, and all of them come with their own sort of belief systems. But there are ways to combat this and work on this. If you suffer from perfectionism, if that is something that has been a key factor in a lot of your art and a lot of creating, and it's just never good enough, it's just not where you want it to be, and you're just never satisfied, even though you may have tons of really great comments or lots of followers, or maybe you don't. I think for artists and trying to sort of get out there and put their art out there, tying self-worth to social networking and those numbers can be really disheartening and not helpful, actually. It's not a smattering of the populace that is on social networking. It's sort of a smattering of folks that are reaching out, that like more public displays, that are trying to sell things. It's just not everyone. So if you're trying to get your art seen and you just don't feel like it's any good, maybe your numbers aren't as high as you think they should be, know that it's not always you. There's a lot of artists online, and it's just, unless you're paying to promote your posts or you know somebody that can give you kind of a boost of attention, it can be really hard to be seen through the noise of all the people. If you are a perfectionist and you struggle with your art, and you have to kind of learn to accept your mistakes, this can be very, very difficult. There's different ways you can do this. You can have like a sketchbook that is just scribbles. You can have a sketchbook where you lean into things that aren't perfectly shaped, things that aren't finished pieces of work. Just putting your thoughts on the page and just drawing around them. Just getting used to the idea of things not being polished and complete can be really, really hard. So you have to kind of understand that mistakes are an inevitable part of the process of a larger success. And you learn more from failing. And it teaches you so much more, and allowing yourself the patience and the grace to do that, to fail upwards is what I call it. If you are drawing and you're practicing and you think you're failing, I would reframe that mindset as to failing upwards if you are stuck on the failure portion of that, just because you're still working, you're still trying, you still want to achieve, and you're still learning and growing. Everyone's still learning and growing. It's constant. If you are suffering from sort of the natural genius mindset of, oh, they're just naturally good at that, they were born really good at that, they've always been able to draw, maybe to a little extent, some people are like that. I've met a couple people like that, and they didn't go into art. So there's the irony of it. Practice. It doesn't mean you're any less qualified to be here. If you use photo references for your pictures, that doesn't mean you're not an artist. That doesn't mean you're a fraud or a fake. It just means you use references. Lots of famous artists in history used references. I don't subscribe to any mindset that says this is right and this is wrong, because it's art. It's all art to me. So it's a reframing of that mindset. If you are called a genius, if you are called a prodigy, and that's what you hold on to, and that has shaped you, you have to start reframing yourself and seeing yourself as a work in progress. It's much healthier. Understanding the journey that people have taken to get to where they're at, their age, maybe. I mean, I've seen some young children that are just amazing at illustration and animation and stuff. But your journey isn't theirs, and understanding that everybody has different distractions and different things in their life and different time that they can dedicate and a different set of tools, all of that plays into it all. All right. The expert sort of mindset is that you have to get as much information as possible, as much knowledge as possible before you can begin or start on a project. I definitely fall into this category with a lot of things in my life. Reading and making sure I'm doing everything I can so I don't screw anything up. And you have to kind of be more spontaneous, kind of helps. Not hoarding knowledge helps, just sort of reframing your brain to let some of that go and let some of the experimentation and magic happen and problem solve your own creative way. As a YouTuber that does art, I do get comments about this being done right, this being done wrong. And kind of, you just, boy, saying let it go, it sounds so like, oh, okay. How though? Reading about psychology, again, I know this is tough. Reading about psychology and understanding that, like, when people make comments It's more of a reflection of them than you, which is the weirdest thing, but it doesn't make it not true. So relaxing, having fun, and just trying to improvise and learn things in a shorter time frame can really help with sort of that expert imposter syndrome, where you have to improve your skill set and get extra training. You know, it can hold you back from trying new things, from applying to jobs, from doing all this stuff if you constantly feel like, oh, I just don't know enough. The superhero one, they work real hard to prove they're not imposters. They give themselves the highest expectation over everybody else, which isn't helpful or healthy. And they have to succeed in every element of their life, at home and at work, and that's impossible. Like, oh wow, that's so hard. And some of this could be learned behavior. If you learned some of this as a child in your home, that what the definition of success is constantly winning and succeeding. This could be just a personality trait you have. This could be a mental health issue. There's so many factors that go into imposter syndrome. If you suffer from sort of this superhero type form of imposter syndrome, you have to go out of your way to avoid validation. And that's really hard for folks that suffer from this specific issue and infliction. It's something that as artists, we put our art out there because we ultimately want people to see it. We want them to like what we're doing. We want to have those discussions and conversations and, compliment each other, but not to the detriment of the self and the art. So that can be really, really tough. You have to draw self-worth from yourself. And that can be tough if that's not something you were taught to do. If you weren't raised how to do that, how to sort of give yourself that value, that compliment to yourself. Be that person that you need. Instead of seeking it out elsewhere, getting it from yourself can be very, very difficult. And then drawing boundaries. And boundaries, again, is another skill set that isn't often taught. But having those between work time and personal self and family time and friend time and all those things, drawing clear lines between those. So you're not putting onto your friends all your work stuff or your family or anything like that. That can be real difficult for the people in your life. And then understanding the definition of success. What is success to you? To me, success is happiness, but again, that's not always something that we're taught. Many folks are taught that success is the promotion. It is the highest rung in any job position. It is getting into a specific college and leveraging those connections into a career. The other one is the rugged individualist, where asking for help is really, really difficult. If that triggers sort of your imposter syndrome, if you feel like, well, I just asked for help, I clearly don't know what I'm doing, I'm a fraud, I'm a fake, I don't belong here. That's not true. It's the struggle to reach out when you need help. And if you're feeling overwhelmed because you're doing too much, but you feel like, well, they can handle it, this person can do it, that person can do it, I should be able to do it too. The comparison is a thief of joy, always holds, always stands, Seeing snippets of people's life via social networking or telephone call still isn't a good, accurate representation of what is going on in their life. Like, does somebody help them? Do they have a maid? Do they not have children? Does somebody make their meals for them and therefore frees up time? And it seems like their output is massive or expansive, but maybe it's just not. Maybe that's just what it looks like or feels like. Understanding the difference between how you feel about something and how it actually looks can be really, really important to identify. You know, finding a mentor, speaking to someone in the art realm can help you with this sort of form of imposter syndrome. Finding somebody you trust to reach out to, that you can talk to about their success, and ask questions, see what it takes for them to be able to get some of this done, how they got this far, and understand that everybody's going through their own struggles. They just may not be showing that portion of it online. That may be private to them. And that can be difficult if you think that all these people are just naturally winning at life and you're sitting there asking for help. I think why this is so prevalent, and this is just my opinion, in the art sphere, in the creative mind, I think that artists, one, there's a bunch of really unhealthy tropes about artists, sort of the starving artist trope, and that one makes me absolute bananas. You don't have to be an interesting artist or considered successful and interesting and exciting and niche if you are starving. Like, that's weird. The other thing is, in the artist profession, a lot of artists have a day job, like another job. And that specifically, I think, makes artists feel like they're not an artist. Whether they be a secretary or a plumber or a gardener or some other profession during the day, that negates the art they create at night or on the weekends or whenever they create. That's just not true. You don't have to be... Like, a plumber isn't always working on pipes to consider themselves a plumber. Like, they just are. So having that level of... That's a great way to word that. Confidence. I would say self-confidence and ownership of, I am an artist. Yep, I may work in a restaurant during the day, but that is my job. And sort of roll that around, introduce that as yourself, and own that. Own your art, own your ideas, own what you create. Really, really listen to yourself and lean into that and take ownership of that title, and don't be afraid to use it. Other people don't decide your self-worth. My phone is being obnoxious. Other people don't decide your self-worth. You do. And your opinions are the ones that matter. And learning to write those down, embrace those, and appreciate those can be super helpful. Starting a journal or just writing down every day. You can write down what you think you're failing at and why you think that, and then reframe that. Okay, so if this is the exact problem, this is what steps I'm going to take to change that. If this is my mindset and how I feel, why do I feel that way? Where did that come from? And can I see that more realistically and less abstract? I'm going to give you a very specific example from my life. I have struggled with mathematics my entire life. I think it's unrealistic to expect every single person in the world to be good at every subject, but specifically math has been quite an issue for me. And so for a long time, I had a lot of trouble in school, starting really early on from like age 8 with math onward. It started very, very early. Thank you, Mom, for saving all my report cards so I can see them. I really, really appreciate that. That gives me a huge amount of context and reference and perspective. So I tried junior college several times, and I kept dropping out. The math was just hard. I couldn't retain it. I couldn't learn it. It was being taught too quickly. I couldn't understand the concepts. The final time, I got huge amounts of tutoring help. My brother helped me for hours every day. And in doing so, I was able to get through all the math I needed to get into the university I wanted to go to. Once I got to that university, I no longer needed any math because I knew what my degree was going to be, and it was design. And in getting that degree, I didn't need any more math. Like, I was done. Once I got in, I was done with the math. I just had to get there. And failing so much and not being able to get through it was really hard because I knew I didn't need it for my job. I only needed basic things, and I only need basic things in my life, basic sort of living math. You know, math you use for cooking and taxes and things like that. I just couldn't get there. So when I finally did get there, so to speak, it felt a little weird. My degree's a little sort of not solidified. It just says design. So I have a degree in design. My concentration was graphic design, and it doesn't say that on my degree. There were many concentrations. There was fashion design, furniture design, many different types. And so my degree is a little sort of not specific either. And I also did something else really unique when I got to the university level. I did 2 years in 1 year, which that was financially, those were for financial reasons. I made that choice. I had the assistance of my husband, who at the time was my boyfriend, and he was doing all the cooking, all the cleaning. I know, this is a long story. And helped with everything. I only went to school 4 days a week. I was taking 20 units a quarter. It was literally coming home in the evening, starting work till I went to bed, and then the 3 days I had off, I worked 8 to 10 hours on schoolwork those days to be able to do that and then pass everything. So when I finally did graduate, so I started in June of 1 year and I was graduating literally June of the next year. I took 24 units over the summer. When I was contacted via email about receiving my diploma, they asked me how I wanted to receive it, and it said you can either sort of pick it up from the office or you can have it mailed to you. And I irrationally freaked out and thought, there's no way I'm going to let them mail me this important document. It wasn't far away or anything, but there's just no way. My mind immediately went to, it's going to get lost in the mail. I'm never going to get it. Don't know that I earned it. I'm never going to get it. So I went to the office to pick it up, and here's where the imposter syndrome thing really kicks in. I went to the office and I told the woman, I gave her my ID and everything and said, I've been contacted. Apparently my diploma is all ready to go. I mean, I walked on the stage and everything. And she said, okay, let me go get it for you. And then she showed it to me and put it in a really nice folder and handed it to me. And I turned to her and I said, okay, but you can't have it back. And she's all, what? And I'm like, if you find out that you screwed up, I'm not giving it back. And she looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I am completely serious. I will never hand this back to you. I don't care if you try and take me to court. You have given it to me. I am keeping it. So I honestly didn't believe I had earned it. Even though, looking back 18 years later, I took all the required classes, passed them all with A's and B's, and still worried that they screwed up giving me my diploma because I just didn't think I had earned it. And if I look at that very unemotionally, very factually, I think that stems from all the failure and not believing I was good at school, not being able to pass simple math things, seeing everyone around me being successful at something and me not being able to, just stayed with me so that when I finally did do something everybody else could do, I didn't believe it was true. Like, I had a really tough time grasping that. And of course they never contacted me and said, hey, we need that diploma back, we screwed up. Colleges and universities don't print diplomas that don't belong to people who don't deserve them, who haven't earned them. But I really felt like an imposter, and that was just something I had to live with. And it was such a huge life goal to get a college degree. I know they're not for everyone. Like, they're not necessary, they're not needed for a lot of careers. Art is sort of one of those things where there aren't a lot of tests or quizzes or tons of things you can get that say, yep, I'm an artist. Like, you can get a degree in art or art history or teaching with, a concentration in art. But if you just want to draw and you're good at drawing and you want to keep drawing, there isn't a lot of paperwork for that sometimes. And there isn't if you go through college to be a lawyer and you get a law degree and then you pass the bar exam, you're a lawyer. You're not then a struggling lawyer because you've never been to court before. So when you start looking at from that perspective of removing emotion and removing feelings and just look at kind of the facts of the situation, it becomes more obvious of where we feel like imposters, what's holding us back, what the problem is. And the solution many times is to write it out and retrain and reframe the way your brain looks at this problem. And it may take additional assistance from a licensed professional, or it may be something that you can work on yourself with a journal, with affirmations, with gratitude, with positivity, with meditating, with taking care of yourself, maybe stepping back from social networking and realizing, maybe that isn't the platform for you. It's not for everyone. There are a lot of people I know and love that are on zero social networking things, and they live a wonderful, happy life. So it's not necessary. Or maybe you do need to get on social networking and start contacting and looking at other artists. One of the most sort of humbling things is to see an amazing artist online and see how little followers they have. And then go, well, I see. It's not just me. Maybe it's this platform and how information gets out. There's just too much. There's too many of us. and it's really, really difficult. I would just, comparing can be so difficult. It's such a fine line, and some of that comes with distance and age and maturity, and sometimes it just, boy, it's so tough. That's why I wanted to talk about this, is because I think it's such a tough topic that, you know, feeling like a fraud within your own career is such a huge thing for artists and creators and designers. And I don't know all of why that is. And I find it absolutely fascinating because, like I said, I have struggled with imposter syndrome on very specific things in my life. Again, I have a design degree that is for graphic design. And when I do graphic design, I feel like an imposter. I don't feel like I know enough. I don't feel like I am up on the technology and program race of having the latest updates of all the latest programs. Therefore, I feel like I am behind or inferior or just not as knowledgeable as other people in that field. And I just don't enjoy it. I mean, there's many reasons I don't graphic design anymore, but I've always felt like an imposter when it's come to what I got a degree in. Because if you were, I just didn't have like the passion and drive to do that every day. And a lot of things that are asked of graphic designers aren't the fun imagery items. They're more of like typesetting and the technical side. And I am more interested in the creative side. And you don't get to do a lot of creative work sometimes till you are higher up in your career, or you work for a very specific graphic design. I know this is very specific examples I'm giving you, but I just want you to know that it applies to everyone. Everyone goes through this in their life. It's how you work through it, keep processing, dealing, understanding, like acknowledging that you feel this way is very, very important, because that's kind of the first step in reframing it and changing that. So understanding that if you are suffering from imposter syndrome and recognizing that and seeing that now within yourself, you can then start to try and figure out why. Why do I feel anxiety when I go online and look at art? Why do I leave this platform feeling stressed and overwhelmed? Like, why is this not a happy thing for me? And sometimes realizing that to get into sort of the drawing zone or the workflow that, you know, where your mindset is relaxing and you're actually enjoying what you're creating, what that has to look like around you and what your setup has to be and where your head's at. A lot of it is mental and mood and feeling, and trying to extrapolate that and understand that and then go about it sort of more factually to heal some of that can be very, very difficult. It is a process. It's not necessarily a fast process. It'll be daily. On average, I read somewhere that it takes something like 66 days to form a new habit on average, but anywhere up to 278 days to form a new habit. So if your new habit is reframing how you look at your art, how you create your art, your feelings after you're done with your art, give yourself a year, like hedge your bets. Give yourself a year and realize that that's not something that's an overnight quick fix, unfortunately. And keep creating and keep reaching out. Find the people that are willing to encourage you and support you and start talking it out, talking it through. Don't hold all that in. That's not healthy either. Keeping it all to yourself when you're having a tough time. Sometimes just saying it out loud can really, really, you hear yourself say it like, wow, I do feel like I'm not doing this right. That can be a huge groundbreaking thing into understanding yourself and your feelings and trying to combat imposter syndrome, which is such a shame and it's such a detriment to the art community. And maybe artists are, you know, a little bit more, I don't know. There's so many, there are so many artist stereotypes that aren't positive. And I would never want to say like, oh, I think artists maybe are more sensitive or lend themselves to being sort of unhealthy or just not cared for or understood. The misunderstood artist is such a trope. I think we can branch out from that and create a new one. The one where we care for ourselves and we reach out to others in the community and ask them how they're doing and get tips and tricks and ideas. I mean, there's tons of articles on imposter syndrome. There's other videos on YouTube. I will link a bunch of them if you are interested. If this is definitely sounding like something that affects you and it's now affecting your art and how you see yourself, I would never want for you to do something as wonderful as art and come away not feeling good. Art should make you feel good. It should be a stress reliever. It should be a creative outlet. It should be something that, I know should is a tough word too. It should be a help, not a hindrance. And if imposter syndrome is hindering your progress, it's time. 2023 is the year that we are looking at ourselves and sitting in our feelings and analyzing why we feel and think the way we do and what we can do to heal, to be stronger, to create the art we want to create and not hold ourselves back. You know, whether it be a promotion or pitching an idea or a book or something, we can't hold back. Art is for everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.